And with me now is Adam Donald King. He is a labor and union analyst. Adam, thank you for being here. Some breaking news that has just come through. The Industrial Relations Board is now being tasked with assessing the strike. The workers could be ordered back on the job. What are your thoughts on this? Is it a surprise to you?
In some ways, it is a surprise. I mean, the minister had been indicating up until now that he wasn't going to intervene, that he was going to refrain from intervening, as the government had done in labor disputes previously on the rails, for example. So it was a bit surprising, but as myself and many others have been pointing out, the longer that this drug on, the more likely it was that the minister was going to intervene in some capacity.
Would this decision, do you think, could it have a negative impact on the already stuck negotiations?
It might. I mean, this is a form of intervention that is really kind of kicking the can down the road. In previous labor disputes, the minister has intervened to impose arbitration, and I think in this case they refrained from doing that because they've received backlash for doing that, and rightly so. In this case, I mean, they're not imposing arbitration, so there's no settlement that's necessarily going to come out of this. It's almost as though there's a pause, as he said, they're taking a time out. So really, negotiations will have to restart again in May, and I guess their hope is that it will do so under more favorable circumstances, but we'll really have to wait and see until then whether or not that's the case.
Stephen McKinnon said, you know, Canadians are rightly fed up, and there is, of course, some anger, frustration. How has this all impacted public support of Canada Post?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. We don't have firm data on what the public support is. We had a poll sort of at the beginning of the strike, which showed that Canadians were more or less split down the middle on the issue. I think that there's actually been quite a bit of support and vocal support, though, for the union, because this strike really comes on the heels of many other labor disputes that have centered the cost of living crisis and many workers who have really been squeezed since the pandemic, especially union members who have been unable to renegotiate their contracts. So I do think that there's quite a bit of public sympathy. But of course, as the strike continued and as the holiday season approached, yes, I understand people were certainly getting frustrated, but in some ways, the government set themselves up for a prolonged dispute by intervening so frequently in labor disputes up until now and giving employers, including Canada Post, the impression that they might do so again.
McKinnon is telling the Canadian Industrial Relations Board to order these workers back if the board agrees that that the talks are at an impasse. Is that a common practice?
No, this is pretty uncommon to impose an industrial commission like this, and he's left the window open slightly for a potential of a negotiated settlement in the meantime, but that's very unlikely. What's most likely going to happen is that workers will be forced to return to work. The commission.
Oh, dear. It looks like we've lost Adam there through some technical difficulties. That was Adam Donald King. He is a labor and union analyst. And Adam, if you can hear us, we thank you very much for your time.